Hey everyone, J.R. Pepper here, also known as Girl Duality. We have to all stick together for the next couple of weeks. Whether you're in quarantine because we're trying to get you better or because your city's just kind of shut down. Everything seems really weird. Everything seems very surreal. And if we're all going to be stuck inside, then we have to help each other out. And help each other stay sane. So, that in mind, I'm going to read an excerpt from one of my favorite Surrealist short stories written by one of my favorite Surrealist artists, Leonora Carrington. This copy is an introduction by Catherine Davis, and I highly recommend you pick this up and find some of her other stories in here. Leonora Carrington, that is. For those of you unfamiliar with her, she was a female Surrealist artist and is regarded by many art historians as a femme enfant and muse for the artist Max Ernst. She participated in various aspects of the Surrealist circle, including making exquisite corpse designs, as well as writing stories and poems. Her paintings usually involve very specific symbolism, especially her earlier work going from 1934 and throughout the 1930s. She was also hospitalized in a mental institution after a severe breakdown, which she writes in one of her other memoir/short story series called Down Below. All these are available online, and I highly recommend you find them. But in the meantime, to give you a little bit of a taste, something that a lot of you might not have ever read or even heard of, I'm going to read my favorite story of hers, called The Debutante, which is beyond surreal, fantastic, and just a little edgy on the dark humor in a way that, well, we kind of need right now. And I'll begin. When I was a debutante, I often went to the zoo. I went so often that I knew the animals better than I knew the girls my own age. Indeed, it was in order to get away from people that I found myself at the zoo every day. The animal I got to know best was a young hyena. She knew me too. She was very intelligent. I taught her French, and she, in return, taught me her language. In this way, we passed many pleasant hours. My mother was arranging a ball in my honor on the 1st of May. During this time, I was in a state of great distress for whole nights. I've always detested balls, especially when they're given in my honor. On the morning of the 1st of May, 1934, very early, I went to visit the hyena. "What a bloody nuisance," I said to her. "I've got to go to a ball tonight."
"You're very lucky,"
she said.
"I'd love to go. I don't know how to dance, but at least I could make some small talk."
"There'll be a great many different things to eat," I told her. "I've seen truckloads of food delivered to our house."
"And you're complaining,"
replied the hyena, disgusted.
"Just think of me. I eat once a day, and you can't imagine what a heap of bloody rubbish I'm giving."
I had an audacious idea, and I almost laughed. "All you have to do is go instead of me."
"We don't resemble each other enough. Otherwise, I'd gladly go,"
said the hyena rather sadly. "Listen, no one sees too well in the evening light. If you disguise yourself, nobody will notice you in the crowd. Besides, we're practically the same size. You're my only friend, and I beg of you to do this for me." She thought it over, and I knew that she really wanted to accept.
"Done,"
she said all of a sudden. There weren't many keepers about, and it was early in the morning. I opened the cage quickly, and in a very few moments we were out on the street. I hailed a taxi. At home, everybody was still in bed. In my room, I brought out the dress I was to wear that evening. It was a little long, and the hyena found it difficult to walk in my high-heeled shoes. I found some gloves to hide her hands, which were too hairy to look like mine. By the time the sun was shining into my room, she was able to make her way around the room several times, walking more or less upright. We were so busy that my mother almost opened the door to say good morning before the hyena had hidden under the bed.
"There's a bad smell in your room,"
my mother said, opening the door.
"You must have a scented bath before tonight with my new bath salts."
"Certainly," I said. She didn't stay long. I think the smell was too much for her.
"Don't be late for breakfast,"
she said, and left the room. The greatest difficulty was to find a way of disguising the hyena's face. We spent hours and hours looking for a way, but she always rejected any of my suggestions. At last she said,
I think I found the answer. Have you got a maid?
"Yes," I said, puzzled.
There you are, then. Ring for your maid, and when she comes in, we'll pounce on her and I'll tear off her face. I'll wear her face tonight instead of mine.
"It's not practical," I said. "She'll probably die if she hasn't got a face. Somebody will certainly find the corpse and we'll be put in prison."
I'm hungry enough to eat her.
The hyena replied. "And the bones?"
As well,
she said.
So it's on.
"Only if you promise to kill her before tearing off her face. It'll hurt too much otherwise."
Alright. Sounds the same to me.
Not without a certain amount of nervousness, I rang for Mary, my maid. I certainly wouldn't have done it if I didn't hate having to go to the ball so much. When Mary came in, I turned to the wall so as not to see. I must admit it didn't take long. A brief cry and it was over. While the hyena was eating, I looked out of the window. A few minutes later, she said,
I can't eat any more. And 2 feet are left over still, but if you have a little bag, I'll eat them later in the day.
"You'll find a bag embroidered with fleur-de-lis in the cupboard. Empty out the handkerchiefs you'll find inside and take it." She did as I suggested. Then she said,
Turn round now and look at how beautiful I am.
In front of the mirror, the hyena was admiring herself in Mary's face. She had nibbled very neatly all around the face so that what was left was exactly what was needed. "You've certainly done very well at that," I said. Towards evening, when the hyena was all dressed up, she declared,
I really feel in tip-top form. I have a feeling that I shall be a great success tonight.
When she had heard the music from downstairs for quite some time, I said to her, "Go on down now, and remember, don't stand next to my mother." I'm going to lose my accent. "Go on down now, and remember, don't stand next to my mother. She's bound to realize that it isn't me. Apart from her, I don't know anybody. Best of luck." I kissed her as I left her, but she didn't smell. She did smell rather strong, actually. Night fell. Tired by the day's emotions, I took a book and sat down by the open window, giving myself up to peace and quiet. I remember that I was reading Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. About an hour later, I noticed the first signs of trouble. A bat flew in the window, uttering little cries. I'm terribly afraid of bats. I hid behind a chair, my teeth chattering. I had hardly gone down on my knees when the sound of beating wings was overcome by a great noise at the door. My mother entered, pale with rage. "We just sat down at the table when that thing in your place got up and shouted."
So I smell a bit strong, what? Well, I don't eat cakes.
Whereupon it tore off its face and ate it. And with one great bound, it disappeared through the window. Leonora Carrington, The Debutante. Give it a look, and find me at www.girlduality.com and girlduality on Instagram. We'll post a new video every Sunday with something weird and something new to learn. It's gonna get a lot stranger, folks. It's strange enough as it is. Let's try to get it together and get through it. See you next week.